Hello and welcome back if you're a subscriber. If not, welcome and thanks for joining. Um, this channel, Robin J's Music Video Vinyl Collection, is a channel in which we talk about our vinyl collection or CD collection, depending on what we showcase for that or any specific video. Today we've got some records, some vinyl records that I'm going to talk about. What I normally usually do is I pull 10 random records from our collection, kind of changed the video a bit today and just randomly selected them and thought I'd use a new background to interest people, I guess. Yeah, so I pulled 10 random records and I'm going to discuss them, maybe provide some stats and any personal memories that I have about them. First record I'm going to highlight today is by one of the best-selling male artists of the 80s, if not of all time, and that's George Michael. Specifically, Monkey is the single I want to talk about. That is the front cover of the vinyl 12-inch, and this is the back side. A nice little photo of him. Now, this single comes from the highly successful album Faith. That came out in October of 1987 and was instantly a hit. The record sold 25 million copies worldwide and was deemed one of the best-selling albums of all time. The album itself spent 12 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, Hot 200 charts, and this specific single spent 2 weeks at #1 on the Hot 100 Billboard chart, as well as #1 for another 2 weeks on the Billboard Dance Club Play chart. This album is, like I said, it was probably one of the best-selling albums of 1987 or of the 80s, and it is one of the best-selling albums worldwide. And that's a remarkable feat, considering that the majority of records were sold physically. So based on radio play, based on physical sales, and based on single sales. So back then, that's what they relied on. I think it's a little more easy to sell records when everything's at your fingertips. Needless to say, this single is amazing. The album itself was produced and written solely by George Michael. Well, the musical instruments and the songwriting was mainly done by George Michael. Production is a different thing. For instance, the production of this song itself was produced by George Michael and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were producers for, mainly known for producing Janet Jackson's biggest album at that time, Control. So they did a lot of production for Janet at the time, but they helped George Michael with this, and this became the fourth #1 from this album. And Faith actually had 7 singles released from that album. George Michael, Monkey, great track, great record. Check it out. And by the way, George Michael was in a band called Wham from, I think, 1982 to maybe 84 or 85. And then they disbanded and he went solo, and probably the best choice of his life. Second record is by a DJ producer remixer, Honey Dijon. She's American-based, from Chicago, but does a lot of DJing in New York, or I think lives in New York, but I'm not 100%. Sorry about that. Nice album cover art, and the back includes all the lyrics. So this specific record came out in 2022. It's a 12-inch single. It includes one remix, an extended version, and a single version of the song Not About You, and it features the vocals by Hadia George. Honey Dijon is very, very well known for remixing artists. The most famous are notably Beyonce, David Bowie, and of course Madonna. Now, for Madonna, she actually produced and remixed her last #1 single on the Billboard Hot 100 Club, Hot Club Play chart, and it was her 50th #1 on that chart. So yeah, Honey Dijon is a very well-known artist. If you don't know, her latest single, I think, is with Chloe, and it's called The Nightlife, which is a kind of redo from a club dance artist called Kim English, who has since passed away. Anyways, this is Honey Dijon. If you don't know who she is, go to your streaming platforms and check it out. Great artist, great remixer, and great producer. The next one is the next record I'm going to showcase is from the best-selling female artist of all time, or best-selling female artist of all time, if I didn't say that, and that is Madonna. The specific record I'm highlighting is Music, and that came out in 2000. It was the first single from the self-titled, sorry, not self-titled, but album of the same name, Music. This single went #1 in 25 countries, so that's pretty huge. And it was her last Billboard Hot 100 #1, which made it her 12th #1. Still one of the best, still one of the female artists with the most #1s. I think Taylor Swift now is got 15, and Mariah's the #1 female artist with 19 #1s. Anyways, this record is Music. It highlights remixes from Hex Hector, who is very famous for remixing, J-Lo, Whitney, and so forth. The other remixer that is highlighted on this is Deep Dish, and they're very well-known remixers as well. It's just a standard black vinyl, but the interesting, or not the interesting thing, but this record includes a poster. I think some of the CDs also included a double-sided poster, but this poster is of Madonna laying in hay with a cowboy-themed record, and then the other side is just this picture here. Yeah, like I said, it was a very successful single for Madonna, and it sparked a lot of interest, considering that she wasn't very, radio friendly at the time. I think radio kind of stopped playing her because of her age. So there was an ageism thing happening as well. Needless to say, she had a huge success with that record, and many others after that. The next record I'm going to highlight is by Toni Braxton. This is another 12-inch. So I think all the records I've randomly pulled today were 12 inches so far. This is, like I said, Toni Braxton. It's a remix of her last Hot 100 hit, He Wasn't Man Enough. And the remix is by Junior Vasquez. Junior Vasquez was a very, very well-known 80s, 90s, 2000s remixer producer as well. And yeah, so he remixed this. He has the Junior Marathon mix, which is 12 minutes long, so it's really cool. As I mentioned, this album is from the 2000 album, The Heat, and it is her last single to chart on the Hot 100. Written by Rodney Jerkins, Fred Jerkins III, LaShawn Danielle, and Harvey Mason Jr. And this went all the way to #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Toni Braxton, He Wasn't Man Enough for me. He Wasn't Man Enough. The next record I'm going to highlight is from a group from Atlanta, Georgia. I think it was Atlanta, Georgia. Oof. Athens, Georgia. Sorry, Athens, Georgia. I had to think about that for a sec. The B-52s. Excellent group. I first heard of the B-52s because I loved the radio station I listened to in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, played them. And I've never heard their sound before. The song I'm specifically talking about is Rock Lobster, which I think was their biggest hit up until they released Rome or Love Shack in the late 80s. But anyways, this is their second album. It's called Wild Planet. It had 3 singles, all released in 1980. And one was Party Out of Bounds. The other one was Give Me Back My Man and Private Idaho. If you haven't heard Give Me Back My Man, I recommend it. This whole album's great, but that specific song, Give Me Back My Man, is fantastic. Love it. Lead singer Fred Schneider. Where is he? Here? No, he's over here. And the 2 female vocalists are Cindy Wilson and Kay Pearson. And then there's Ricky Wilson and Keith Strickland in the band as well. Like I said, came out in 1980, 3 singles. It charted pretty well considering they were, I don't think a very well-known band, but number 32 in Canada, number 12 in Australia, number 18 in the UK, and number 18 on the US Hot 200. So that's Wild Planet by the B-52s. Standard black vinyl. Really, really cool album. Love that. Love that group. Okay, the next one, speaking of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the next album I'm going to highlight is from an artist from Toronto, Canada. And her name is, her stage name is Ali X, but her real name is Alexandra Ashley Hughes. She's an indie pop artist, like I said, from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This is her second studio album. It was released in February of 2020. Didn't really impact the world charts, but it did make the Billboard Heat Seekers chart at number 23 and the Billboard Current Albums chart at number 73. Metacritic, which is what do you call it? I guess an agency that takes all published ratings and gives them an overall rating score. They rated this album 78 out of 100, which is pretty good for considering she's not a very well-known artist. This isn't a standard black vinyl. It is a green vinyl, but this is the inlay. So very cool. Then it's got the album lyrics at the back. And for those of us who have problems seeing, visual problems, definitely get your magnifying glass out because those lyrics are tiny. The interesting thing about this record, it's green vinyl. Really cool. So yeah. But that's LEX, a great indie pop artist from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Next record I'm going to highlight is from an artist that sadly passed away in, I think, 2009. But she certainly left a lasting impact with her debut album, Learning from Falling. There were only 2 singles released from that album, and one of them was called Empires, Bring Me Men. This is another 12-inch, believe it or not. So I've had the majority of records I've highlighted today were 12-inch records, except the last 2, the B-52s and LEX. This is another double 12-inch, so there's two sets of remixes. Like I said, Lamia Al-Maghari, hopefully I'm pronouncing her last name right, was a Kenyan-born English singer-songwriter. She has since passed away. The debut album by her, again, like I mentioned, it's called Learning from Falling, came out in July of 2022, and it was produced by Nelly Hooper, famously known for working with Bjork, Madonna, and other artists. This album was this single, Empires, Bring Me Men, was a #1 Billboard Dance Club hit. So it was really good. Remixes include Junior Vasquez, Illicit, Wildlife, and Boris and Beck. Yeah, and sadly, like I said, Lamia passed away in January of 2009. but she left us some great music. So that's that record. Next one I want to highlight is great vocalist, Danielle Ponder. This is her debut album, and it came out in 2022. She is an American artist. She's a musician, but what she did before she started making and writing music was she was a public defender in Rochester, New York, where she was from. This album specifically was written over a 3-year period. It's her debut album, and I highly recommend it. If you want some excellent vocal sound and music, this is a great record to listen to. She was inspired by blues. This record isn't specifically blues, but she was inspired by singers Coco Taylor and Big Mama Horton. But this album is kind of like pop, R&B, a hint of blues rock, and trip hop. So if you like any of those genres, I highly recommend this. I heard her, my partner, introduced me to Danielle Ponder, and I've been hooked since. I love her music. I did see a video of her performing Radiohead's song Creep, and what a rendition. She's fantastic. So if you haven't listened to Danielle Ponder, you can find her on all streaming platforms. And you could actually as well find her on some, as guest vocalist on some DJ produced records as well. That name, remember it. She's going to be really famous one day if, well, she kind of is already. The next album I want to highlight is an album by my favorite, one of my favorite 80s groups and one of my favorite groups, period. And that is Depeche Mode. So Depeche Mode was founded by, I think, Andrew Fletcher and Vince Clarke. Vince Clarke left the band after their first album and formed Yazoo with Alison Moyet, and then formed Erasure with Andy Bell, and they're still together now. But this record, Some Great Reward, it actually put, I believe it put the band on the map in North America, because till then they really had no hits here in North America. But with the release of People Are People, it was highly successful and did manage to chart. This was Depeche Mode's 4th studio album. It came out in September of 1984. It went to number 5 in the UK, number 51 on the Hot 200 in the USA. People Are People was number 13, or went to number 13 on the Hot 100, which is pretty amazing for this, and it was the first single from Depeche Mode from this album in 1984. They also released Master and Servant from this album and Blasphemous Rumors / Somebody, which is a double A side. It had 2 tracks on it that were released. And an interesting fact about the single Somebody, it was recorded by Martin Gore, who does some vocals for some of Depeche Mode singles. But for Somebody, which he sings on, he recorded that nude in the studio, which is pretty funny. I don't know why. Does it make you sound better? I don't know. I'm not an artist, but I just thought that was a funny fact. Again, this record was re-released in 2007, but originally came out in 84. Great record, great band, still active today, and still one of the most successful touring artists in the last decade. So yeah, that's Depeche Mode, going strong. So the last highlight is another 12-inch record, believe it or not. So I did a lot of 12-inch. I spoke about a lot of 12-inch records today. This again is by Madonna, and this was her second single from her second album, Like a Virgin, which was again hugely successful, one of the best-selling albums of all time. like I said, second single from second studio album, Like a Virgin. It was released in January of 1985. This specifically has the extended dance remix of Material Girl, and side two has an album track called Pretender, which is actually quite good as well. 1984 is when Like a Virgin was made or written. Came out in January of 1985. This single actually came out in 1985. The album came out in 84. The writers for Material Girl were Peter Braun and Robert Rands. Madonna, I think, usually wrote her stuff, but funny enough, her two biggest singles at the time during this time were not written by her. This was a Billboard Hot 100 hit, and it peaked at number 2. It was the number 1 Billboard Hot Dance Club hit, and that went to number 1. Like a Virgin was the first album. So this Material Girl was from Like a Virgin, and Like a Virgin was the first album to sell over 5 million copies by a female artist at the time. Worldwide, it sold 21 million copies. And like I mentioned before, that is not an easy feat for an artist or artists that came in a time where there was no digital streaming or any downloading. They all relied on radio play, physical sales, and touring. Now it's just touring. Pretty much you make the most money you make today is by touring. Anyways, that was Madonna, Material Girl, number 2 hit for her. That's all I have for today. Those are the records I wanted to highlight. If you like the channel, please subscribe and make any comments you'd like. If I maybe said something that isn't accurate, please let me know. You can also find me on Twitch on Saturdays, in which I live DJ. And I live DJ mostly dance and club music, but I will sometimes DJ or have special sets like 80s music or pop remixes. But yeah, you can find me on Twitch TV under the moniker because I'm currently DJing for Dancing Bear, my partner. So yeah, look me up on Twitch. Dancing Bear is D4 NCING Bear, BEAR, on Twitch TV. You can catch me there as well. If you like what you hear or what you see, please again like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And see you next time. Thanks for watching. Keep music alive.